Hi, my name is Heather Alderman, and I am the Executive Director of COSMA. I'm here today with Dr. Jennifer Kane from the University of North Florida. COSMA is conducting a series of interviews with sport management faculty who also hold administrative positions to get a sense of the personal story, how you all got there, what it's like. So Dr. Kane, it's great to see you this morning. Please introduce yourself and let everybody know what your title or titles are.
Hi, Heather. So I'm Jennifer Kane. As you mentioned, I'm the Associate Dean for the College of Education and Human Services at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville. And I'm also the Faculty Athletics Representative, which is a position that I really enjoy. And I think it is an administrative leadership role as well. So I can address that one too.
Okay, so how long have you been in both of those positions or either of those positions?
So I have been the associate dean now for 6 years. This is my 6th year.
Mhm.
And prior to that, though, I was the interim associate dean. So I was an interim associate dean for 2 years prior to getting the permanent position in, which was when we had a new dean. So that was 6 years ago.
Okay,
And I have been the faculty athletics rep for 8 years.
Oh, yeah. And so what steps did you take to seek out those positions? It sounds like it's two different processes or two different skill sets.
Processes, correct. So I'll start with the faculty athletics representative role, which is that position is interesting because it is an appointed position. And you're appointed by the president of the institution. So we had a former faculty athletics representative who moved into a vice provost role. So at that time, he decided to step away from the FAR role. So I was involved with athletics to a certain degree as a member of the intercollegiate athletics committee at the university level. So I had known this person and been involved and had chaired that committee before. So when, upon knowing that he was stepping down, I contacted the president and actually just sent a letter of interest to him. And he replied back immediately that he appreciated it. He would definitely keep me in mind. And about 2 weeks later, I was called to his office for an interview and interviewed for the position. And I'm not even sure if there were others interviewed or not. That never really was made clear to me. But about 2 weeks later, I was appointed as the FAR. So it is a position where I take very seriously given that appointment, because it is as if, you do have a lot of responsibility to represent the faculty and the institution on academic and well-being matters for our student athletes and ensure they're successful, and especially on that part of the academic side. So no playing time, none of those, those playing time issues or anything like that, but making sure that they are successful students and that our institution is committed to making sure that that happens, and that that's a really important piece of it for me. So I've really enjoyed being in that role. I meet with the president several times a year and make sure that we're on the same page about the mission and the priorities of our athletics department. So
Has that position changed with COVID?
Not really. It actually a little bit, only in that it was a really busy time during COVID. It was a crazy time. Because a lot of what we were doing at that time was trying to ensure that our student athletes were safe and that we were able to provide all of the safeguards that we could to try to get them back on the practice field and competing again. So a lot of that was planning and really making sure again that we were planning for how we were going to try to create a bubble for them so that they would not expose each other and other people. And we did pretty well here. I have to give our athletic director, he's since retired, but I was part of a team that created the plans, the COVID plans. And so I think we did really well with that. I would say probably the hardest part of that job right now is with all of the ever-changing rules that the NCAA
Yes.
is requiring of us, both in the transfer portal and the opening of the transfer portal, and then also with the name, image, and likeness rules. So
Right.
a lot of those things I have to be involved with. And
Yes.
and again, that transfer portal is a big one because we have to ensure our student athletes are certified eligible to participate. And that's challenging when you have transfers are the hardest ones to ensure are getting certified. So, and they're the most complicated. So the more we do have a lot more transfer students than we have ever had. And that just complicates things.
Oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. And how did you apply for that associate dean position, the interim director and then?
Yeah, so when we had a vacancy in our dean position, and I was the chair at the time. And the associate dean was asked to be the interim dean. And so that left the associate dean position vacant. And there were two chairs at the time that were being considered, and she and I both met with the interim dean and just through an interview process. And basically, at the time, both of us were qualified. Yeah. Both of us were willing and able to do it. And then, I think really the other chair decided she didn't want to do it. And so it was a challenging time for our college. A lot went on with that dean leaving, if you can imagine. Yes. That's not always a positive thing. Right. So, I agreed to step in and be the interim associate dean. And we actually thought it was going to be for 1 year, but then we had 2 unsuccessful searches that year. And so it ended up being an additional year. So that was a little bit different than I thought. I was going back to the chair role after a year, but ended up staying in that interim role for 2 years. And then when we were successful at hiring a new dean, that dean then was ready to put somebody in that role in a permanent way. And so I think there wasn't a formal interview process, although she wasn't willing to do that right away. So I think my interview was about 6 months of us working together. Right. Yes. To see if we were compatible and if if the stars aligned and it was a relationship that was going to work, because I do serve at the pleasure of the dean. Right. So that's an important relationship. Yeah. And so after about 6 months, she decided that she wanted to hire me in the permanent position. So I was able to just move into that permanent position and be appointed as the associate dean, as opposed to having to go through any kind of formal interview process, which is unlike any other role. Yeah. But because of that relationship with the dean and how closely those two roles and those two positions work together. Yes. I think that is one place where the dean kind of has the ability to make that appointment here at UNF. Right. That's really interesting. And when you decided first to throw your hat in the ring for the interim associate dean position, what was going through your mind? Did you have a career trajectory in mind, or were you thinking it was just temporary and why not try it? Or, what were your thoughts about that and your plan? That's an interesting question. And I've thought about that over time. And I think, so in all honesty, I never really had administration as a career goal. I was very happy being a faculty member and teaching, and I was the program director. So running the sport management program was really a great opportunity for me, and one that I really embraced. I started the program, so for me it was a labor of love, and so I really wasn't looking for an administrative position. And I do think that happens frequently as I've talk to other administrators and kind of listen to their stories. I think what I had going for me was that I took an idea from its conception and I implemented it, and I was able to others and were able to see the results of that project or that idea. So I think that when people look and seek out administrators, they're looking for evidence of accomplishment, evidence of leadership.
Yes.
So I just think, I have been fortunate. I think I have been identified rather than me really throw my name in the hat or seeking those administrative roles, specifically in the beginning. And so I've always really kind of looked at it that way, and I'm going to work hard. I try to be a strong leader. I try to, to show evidence of that. And, to be honest with you, I think that's worked for me. I have not really thought that being a dean was something that I wanted to do. And it's not been like, okay, I'm going to be a faculty member, a chair, associate dean, and then dean, and this is the way I'm going to get there. It's just been a path for me. So I don't know what's next. But I do know that, again, I'm a firm believer in you work hard, you show others that you can be a leader, and you find opportunities to do that. And then I think, as anything else, you want your name to come up when people are talking about potential leaders and potential faculty who may be candidates for either chair or associate dean or whatever that next step is. And I think that's just the way I've operated, and it's worked for me. I do think it's important, and I probably don't do this enough. I think it's important that you do share your career goals with your dean and or associate dean or chair, so that again, people have you on their radar. And I know, again, serving as the associate dean, I work very closely with our chairs. And so I do think that, we as a leadership team in the college, we do look for leaders in faculty. And so any way that you can show that you've taken something, whatever that something is, and seen it through, and you've got results, and you've shown that you can lead people, lead ideas to fruition, then I think those are the things that we're looking for when we look at future leaders. So I don't know what's next for me, but I do know that I'm just going to keep working hard, and then you just hope that people notice.
Well, it sounds
so that may be different than other people. But that's just the way that I've always looked at leadership. I don't want to be, I think it's important to me to know that people want me to be their leader. So even when I was in the chair role, and my first chair role was also interim. So there's kind of a pattern. I've been asked to fill a role when there was a need. And then I've gotten into that position and then showed that I could do it. And then I've gotten the permanent position. So that's kind of been a pattern for me. And so I do think it's important to let people know if there's an interim spot open. Interim is not always the best place to be. It's hard, but it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show what you can do and what you're capable of as a leader.
Kind of on the flip side, are you able to identify faculty that you work with or who are in your department that you see those potential leadership skills in, and you help them cultivate that to move on to possibly an administrative position or a position of leadership?
Yes, and we are actually timely. We are starting a program in our college where we're going to, it's kind of a leadership fellow program. And so faculty can identify a project, can identify an idea that they're interested in kind of showcasing, and we will, again, appropriately fund that if it's fundable, and give them the opportunity to be a leadership fellow. And we can select mentors who are appropriate for the project. But that's, again, I think the opportunity for faculty who don't often have the ability or the opportunities to necessarily showcase their leadership, but it gives them the opportunity to showcase their leadership skills. And I do think there's a difference, and I have ed leadership in our college. And so, there's a difference in self-selecting as a leader versus having somebody select you and identify leadership skills in you. And I think that just kind of goes along with my philosophy with leadership, and in that I do think when you are a good leader, a strong leader, people notice. I think you can identify your desire to do it, but I do think that there's something bigger when people seek you for leadership. And so we're going to give people the opportunity to showcase those skills so that others can see that they do have leadership capacity. And then hopefully more faculty will have the opportunity to move into leadership roles as they come open, or if they decided to apply somewhere else, they would have something to talk about, something to really showcase that they've done. Because that's what people want. They want to know, like, you can have been a leader, but what did you accomplish while you were a leader is really important. And we look at that when we hire, even when we hire, outside external administrators. We want to know more than that they held the position, because, okay, you got it, but what did you do in the position that you can show that you could come here to our institution and lead us to, to do better things, to do greater things. So it's really important to be able to talk about that and demonstrate that in an interview, and to be able to talk about what you've done.
Yeah, it sounds like you, with that leadership fellowship, I'm not sure I'm calling it the right thing, but that will give the chance to some individuals to showcase that. So that sounds
That's right.
perfect.
Because there's only so many. Like, you can be a program director, you can be a chair, but there's sometimes chairs stay in those roles 8 years, 10 years, so if you're a faculty member, oftentimes it's hard to figure out what that leadership opportunity is going to look like, so that you're able to move into a chair role or program director role, or whatever that next step is for you.
Is there any preparation for these roles that you've had that you wish you had, or are you able to look back and see things that you did that did help prepare you, kind of unbeknownst to you at the time?
I certainly think that what helped me the most was being a program director and being able to come into my role here kind of with a blank slate. So I was really challenged from the time I got here to develop and grow a program that had no students in it and had very little curriculum. And so I came into a program where I had only up. I mean, the only place I could go was up. So being able to come in as a faculty member and be able to do that and make that happen and grow a program, going through the curriculum, developing the curriculum, hiring faculty to help and to complement what I brought to the table, thinking through the resources, making sure that we had a strong relationship and partnerships in the Jacksonville area was a huge one. And then also on campus, so working with our the other colleges, the College of Business, and really creating those relationships, I think definitely helped me. When I got in my first administrative role, unfortunately, and I think this is pretty common, we don't do a lot I think you just show up one day, at least for me, you show up one day and now you have all these emails coming in asking you to do all these things. And you're like, wait, what do I do? So, thinking back, and I think that helps me as an associate dean, is that's a part of my job now, is to mentor chairs as they come in. And so that they have some help They
Yeah.
have someone they can turn to if they get into a situation they're not sure how to handle, because I really believe that the chair role is one of the hardest jobs in higher education.
Yeah.
And that person, the people in those roles really can use mentoring and help when they come up against especially conflicts that occur in the department with faculty who used to be their friend, or I shouldn't say used to be their friends, but the role changes, right? So one day you're their friend, the next day you're supervising them and evaluating them.
Right.
And then you know that you probably are going to go back to being their friend. You know, it's a strange place. It's not, you know, it's not easy to have to counsel or reprimand someone who you had lunch with last week. You know, it's just different. It's a different place. Higher ed and higher ed leadership is very unusual. It's unusual too, in that in corporate America, typically, if you're in a leadership role and you're no longer in that role, you usually leave, right? You don't go back and be whatever, right? So in higher ed, typically when you are dismissed or for whatever reason, or if you decide, you go back and your next door neighbor is the person who you supervise. It's different. It's a different relationship. So just learning how to navigate those waters is, I think, a way we could be better at helping faculty learn. And, you know, again, I don't think it's easy for anybody, but it may be one of the places where it's a little bit tougher for females. I think maybe because we are a little more relational sometimes. And so we come from a place of being in relationship with our, you know, colleagues. And then we go into now having to resolve conflict, learn things about people, that personnel issues that you never knew. And you're like, really, what, you know, that happened and you didn't know about it. And so it's, you know, that conflict piece and learning how to resolve conflict really, I think, separates a lot of strong leaders from those that don't make it. You really have to be good at conflict resolution and figuring out how to do that well, and not being afraid of it and not ignoring it. Because it's tough, but you can't ignore it. It doesn't go away. No. It gets worse. So I think that's a place where, you know, it is a challenge for most new leaders. It's a challenge for all leaders, I think. No, I can't imagine. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I love it. I love dealing with conflict. I love, you know." No one wakes up and, "Oh, I hope I have a conflict today." You know, so no one really likes it. But there are ways to get better at it, and there are ways to learn, I think, how to handle it and not internalize it, take it personally, develop a little bit of kind of that thick skin that you're not going to, everybody's not going to like all your decisions. Everybody's not going to like everything you do. And they don't always have all the information. You can't share all the information about the decision that you're making. And so, you know, you have to learn how to swallow that and go, okay, I accept that you don't understand, you don't agree with me, but you also don't know everything. And so that's where trust comes in, and people have to be able to respect and trust you that you are making good decisions, sound decisions that are good for the whole, not always good for the individual, but good for the institution or program or department as a whole.
Sounds a lot like parenting.
It does, doesn't it? You're exactly right. I feel that some days, because I go from, dealing with conflict at home to conflict at work.
You've described quite a number of challenges that you are facing, have faced, that are perennial, not necessarily unique to you personally or your position personally. Are there any other challenges or that you would like to talk about that are something you've learned from and could help give some words of wisdom, you know, to others?
I think probably one of the things that I've learned over the years as a leader and I kind of left off on it, but I think overall people have to trust your heart, trust your judgment,
Hmm.
and respect that you are being honest and as honest and transparent as you can possibly be in certain situations. And I go back to when I was a teacher and the principal that I had a little, disagreement with him, and I didn't agree with the decision. And I looked at him and I said, I don't agree with you, but I do know that you have students' interest at heart. That is at the heart of what you do. And so I'm good. Like, we can agree to disagree. And I know that that's how you operate.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you get people to do things that are in line with the mission of the institution. Is they have to believe that that's where your heart is. And those are your motives, that you don't have any kind of, ulterior motives. There's no conspiracy theories. There's none of the stuff, right? It's, I believe that you have our best interest at heart, even though every decision that you make may not be one that I agree with. So
Yeah.
I do think that kind of sums up the way I look at leadership. And so I think it's really gaining the trust and the respect of your peers and the people that you work with, so that when these opportunities come up, someone's going, I think this person would be a great, we should consider this person for this leadership role. And I think it works.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're not going to get overlooked at times, but that may not be a good fit for you.
Right.
And trust in what those who are in leadership roles tell you about your leadership. Seek that. How can I improve? What do I need to do? If that's something you want to, to pursue, talk to the people who know you the best.
Yeah.
And have them be just flat out honest. What is it? What can I do differently? How can I improve?
Right.
And know that everybody is not made to be a leader in this environment.
Yeah.
Again, this environment is unique.
Yeah. Right.
That doesn't mean couldn't be a leader in a different place, in a different environment. But in this particular, department or college or university, just may not be a good fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any last or parting words of wisdom? You certainly have given me some great advice accidentally. So anything else before we wrap up?
I think you have to, really go into this. If you want to go into leadership, I do think people sometimes go into leadership because it is the one way you can make more money in higher ed. So it's like, okay, I'm at this faculty. You only get a few opportunities for promotion as a faculty member. So they look at administration as, okay, this is a way I can get a 12-month position, get more money, get a stipend added to my, base salary, whatever the configuration is at your institution.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're going to like it or love it or really be good at it.
Yeah, good point.
So, it's just important to know what you're getting into and understand the job. And is it really worth the money? If you're not going to be happy in the job and it's going to not end in you feeling good about yourself, and it's not for, like I said, just because it's not for you doesn't mean you couldn't be a leader or you're not a leader. It just may not be the right environment. So I just, you got to go into it for the right reasons, and just to get an extra, bit of money may not be the reason to go into a leadership position in higher education. So I think that's what I would leave you with is, do it for the right reasons. Do it because you like seeing other people succeed.
Yes.
And do it because it's something that you are, you're committed to, and it's not about you anymore. It's just not about you anymore. It's about helping other people get better.
Right. Well, that is a great place to stop. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today. So thank you so much, Dr.
Thanks
Kane.
for asking, and I hope it was helpful for somebody.
I hope so too. I think yes.
Well, it's a great series, so I'm glad we're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.